What can we do for Nicholas? How do we resolve this situation? I will say that this is one of those red flag moments in education where someone, not Mrs. White, not the new teacher, where someone needs to step in and resolve and put us on a plan of action and a path forward so that this does not become a situation where Nicholas falls through the cracks, or where conflict grows and grows between the family and the schools, that it becomes part of procedural safeguards and complaint process through the state and due process. Let's talk about how that can happen. First of all, and immediately, we need to implement some kind of response to intervention for Nicholas. This, again, is not on the new teacher. It shouldn't be a case where you're a brand new teacher in a building and you're having to build MTSS from the ground up. That's been in place for many, many years in the state of Michigan. What we need to find out about Nicholas's case is there a system in place? As a new teacher, did Mrs. White not know about MTSS? And that's not on her if she didn't. What's the breakdown for supports? Even small schools can have tiered support systems. You don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars and tens of extra staff members, although that definitely helps. But even very, very small schools, rural schools, are required to have tiered levels of supports. They need to be more creative, but it's possible. It's probable, it's required, and it's what's best for kiddos. We also can take a look in your extra resources folder for this week. There are two examples. One example of math at a tier 3 level and one example of literacy at a tier 3 level. So if you still are confused about how this might look, please feel free to dig in there a little bit. We also need to make sure that Mrs. White has curriculum that provides the right kinds of supports. Our texts mention specific curriculums that have it built in, frameworks that have it built in that teachers in gen ed classrooms can control and can use. And we also need to make sure, as a teacher, you need to make sure that you're implementing strategies, evidence-based strategies, and universal design for learning. Is what Mrs. White, is what she's teaching, is that open to all students and all learners? Is Nicholas getting high quality, universally designed tier 1 instruction? We don't know that. I'm not putting this on Mrs. White, and I don't know either way. Number 2, Nicholas needs some supports for social emotional, and we need to provide the family with some supports. Is there an after school program or after school support, online support, or supplementary services? Not supplementary services, that's an IEP term, sorry. Supplementary work that Nicholas can take home. Does he have a Chromebook or a laptop or an iPad that he can take home and get repeated practice on at home? Mom sounds like she's willing when she can, but are there programs in the neighborhood or in the school that can help support this family? I think one of the most important things we need is data. We don't have the structural evidence that we need, but we also don't have progress monitored data on Nicholas. How did he respond to the phonemic instruction, phonemic awareness and phonics instruction that Mrs. White provided? If he's offered some universal design supports, do those help? Does a visual plan help? Does visual learning? Does hands-on learning? What helps and what doesn't? And what are the results of some of the very basic interventions that we've tried already? After we have that data, there needs to be a whole situation of collaboration with the supports that are available in that school. The student success team meeting should not be the first time that they get together and talk about this, resulting in a referral for special education. If we're at the point where we're looking at eligibility for special education, that collaboration should have happened ahead of time. That's a core component of MTSS, and something that we can now do and collaborate and provide Nicholas with the support that he needs. And the last thing, and a really big one, is that we need to resolve this child find issue. You don't want 6 months down the road that mom to come back and say, I asked for special ed referral months ago and you've done nothing. You want to be deliberately clear and document every step of the way. You could go ahead with special ed referral and eligibility and evaluation at this point, especially if mom feels comfortable and that's what she wants. We cannot delay that once a formal request has been made. At this point, there is no signed consent. And if the team collaborates and they don't force mom through it, maybe there are other supports she'd be more comfortable with before referral for special education. And from the description of her reaction to that meeting, I'm going to assume that that probably would be the best path. But as you take this on as an assignment, or even as you're thinking about it while you're listening to me, or maybe on your run or your dog walk, if you're thinking about it differently, you just have to keep in mind that there are regulations and laws we must follow, but we have to do something to resolve that situation pretty quickly and immediately. Those are all things that we could put in place to help Nicholas. I'm hoping that MTSS and Child Find are now pretty crystal clear in your mind now that you've considered an actual student. Please feel free to think about this with the students in your classrooms and in your schools and in your environment, and contact me if you have any further questions about the content for this, or if you have questions about moving on and choosing this one as one of your 3 case study assignments for the term.